Welcome to another episode of We Don't Die, where my goal is to give you evidence that although our bodies will disappear, we survive physical death. I'm your host, Sandra Champlain, author of the international best-selling book called We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. And today I'm pleased to introduce you to Maxine Meilleur. Maxine is a former officer in the U.S. Army and veteran of Operation Desert Storm. She is also a classically trained evidential medium who does not consider a consultation successful unless she is highly detailed and provides you with practical insight so that you can move forward with your life. Maxine is a Master's of Divinity candidate at Harvard Divinity School and is the first spiritualist and working medium at Harvard since 1857. She's a former business entrepreneur and cross-enrolled student at the Harvard Business School and has a real understanding of business practices and also consults her clients on business. She's the author of Great Moments of Modern Mediumship, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Her website is Modern Day Seer. She's the host of the radio show called Modern Day Seer. And, as always, our guests can be found on WeDon'tDieRadio.com, and Maxine is episode 106. Maxine Meilleur, welcome to We Don't Die Radio.
Well, thank you, Sandra, for having me, and I'm a great admirer of your work and the energy that you've built up with your series of shows. I am not easily impressed by people in this work, but when I first heard about you, I thought, wow, here is a genuine woman doing really good work. So I applaud you.
Oh, thanks.
With just the same enthusiasm as you've over the top introduced me.
Yeah, well, we're both genuine, and it's so much easier to be inspired by real people that care. You know, we're out to make a difference. So anyways, I am totally interested and enthralled with your books and who you are, and you may or may not know, but my episode 102 was talking about my journey to the Arthur Findlay College, and I know you've been there as well, and some of the things I'm greatly passionate about learning, you've studied and you've done. So, Maxine, would you give us a little bit of maybe your story of how you grew up into this world of being a medium? I mean, has this always been something interesting to you?
Well, I say no. I can't remember seeing spirit as a child. I was very under-challenged in grade school, and I did things in grade school. I'd think, outside, and I'd think about the squirrels, and who knows, maybe I was pulling a Harry Potter and communicating with the squirrels back then. I don't know, but I never had any of those I saw my dead grandmother stories. Never.
Right.
And when I was an early adult, going to community college. In my area in Florida at that time was a great many spiritualist churches.
Yes.
And I went church shopping as a teenager, and I thought these churches are really cool. And the people in them, I later found out, were the last of the old-timers from Camp Chesterfield and Lilydale Assembly, the last of the great old-timers who spent their summers or spent their winters down in Florida. And those churches now don't exist anymore, and the caliber of mediums really don't exist anymore. So I started to go to spiritualist churches, and then I thought, oh, well, when you're young, you think that's how it is all over. And I graduated from college and went off, and I couldn't find any more spiritualist churches. Mm-hmm. And I grew up and get an adult job and da-da-da. And then I thought, something's missing. Something is missing. And I always, kept around the fringes of the psychic fair movement. But I wanted to go to church. I wanted to learn about the philosophy. I wanted to learn about the history. I wanted to go back to those childhood moments. And I started to go to the Arthur Findlay College, and I started to go to European churches, and I went back to Lilydale for many, many summers, and so to cut it short, I was introduced to it as a teenager, and then I came back to spiritualism late in life.
Interesting. And was it by attending the Arthur Findlay College for the first time that you realized, that you have these abilities yourself?
I went to Lilydale first and volunteered many, many summers, and then the people who knew it at Lilydale said, "You got to go to Arthur Findlay College. You got to go there." And I said, "Okay, all right." And so it seems that the best of the best were always talking about that.
Yeah,
so,
that's how I found out about it. I interviewed enough people that were extraordinary mediums, and I'm like, "What's this place? I got to go there."
So that the Arthur Findlay College just validated it. And then some of my best friends are from Norway, Sweden, Scotland, and they're spiritualists all over, and they hold seances in Switzerland, so this just, I found my community of friends, and I found my church.
At what point did you go into the Army?
Right after college. Right after college, and I spent 9 years. I'm a bit of a rebel, and I knew I wasn't going to retire as a colonel or anything like that. I knew I wasn't even going to retire. So I looking over the arc of my life, and sometimes when I give readings, you could look at the arc of someone's life. Mm-hmm. the general pathway and their general direction. And so, I came into this world wanting to do something like that, the military, and I did it, and I got out. And so it served a purpose, and not everybody makes it a career.
Right. Well, thank you for your service, needless to say. And I have no doubt that your experiences from that are still at play with who you're being or what you're up to. And it's amazing how our past plays a role in who we are now. If that makes sense.
Yes.
So where should we go? You became a medium, and you see, you're up to a lot, because I'd love to hear about being the first spiritualist working medium at Harvard.
Well, you always want to make your application different.
Yeah.
And I wanted to tell the truth, and I had been researching spiritualism for many, many years, and I know all of the old stories and all of the old mediums, and I thought, there was this story about this student in 1857, and sure enough, in the craze of spiritualism after the Fox sisters, it was literally sweeping America. The high class and the low class alike were doing table tipping and everything else. And sure enough, this Unitarian minister in training at Harvard Divinity School started to do seances and started to do clairvoyance and trance. And of course, they threw him out. And so, in fact, when I was at Harvard, I looked in their archives, and some of this man's notes, his trance notes and his automatic writing, is actually in the library. And I was very privileged to, tell the archive librarian to dig out that old box. And sure enough, 150 years ago, this guy went into trance and had an automatic writing session. If your listeners don't know what automatic writing is, it's a state of entrancement in which the medium writes but the spirit world takes control of the writing, and the method of the handwriting can change, and the spelling and language can change.
Yeah.
So sure enough, I got to see the archived box of this man, and so I was kind of walking in his shoes, and so I was the first working medium there since 160 years. And
that's amazing.
Yep. That's
amazing. Are you still enrolled in the program?
I
don't know about how it works. So
well, Matt Damon and Zuckerberg. There are a few people who withdraw and drop out, and so I've dropped out for now. And just to say I studied at the Divinity School is fine enough for me.
Yeah, it works for me. Yeah. I know that I've been glancing at your book, and I am somebody who, in a nutshell, went from a skeptic, not believing in anything, to opening up this unbelievable world of life after death stuff. And I had not heard of physical mediumship, the seances, the table tipping, ectoplasm, these terms before. And it's been the last maybe 4 or 5 months or so that I'm like, holy cow, what is all this? And so I think many people, Maxine, know about the evidential mediumship, talking about your Aunt Sally's sitting next to you and she used to make you Campbell's soup and a grilled cheese and all that stuff.
Right.
But there's this whole world that, I'm sure it still exists, like you said, maybe in Holland and Norway, and I know we learned some of it at the Arthur Findlay College, but a lot of that kind of mediumship you talk about in your books.
I do. And as soon as the Fox sisters were physical mediums. They also did some mental stuff, but they were mainly physical mediums, and they would produce raps. I just snapped my fingers, but knocks. And these weren't poltergeist knocks. These weren't telekinesic. These were intelligent from the spirit world who had an awareness and a breadth of knowledge that was beyond anyone in the room. Mrs. Fox would ask, how many children have I had? And the knock would rap out 8. And she had 6 kids, but none of the 6 kids knew that she had 2 miscarriages or 2 stillborns. So, and there were other, when the Fox sisters came around, this is physical mediumship that just blew everybody in the room away. And so as early as the 1850s, but really going whole hog in the 1880s, the great scientists of the day, and you'll have to understand that was a time of great science, the steam engine. In 1890, 1895, they walked away from their chemical labs and said, I don't want to study boron anymore. This afterlife stuff is what I'm going to devote the rest of my life to.
Yes.
And so you have a whole body. You have a 20-year fabulous body of scientific experimentation on physical mediums from 1880 to 1920. And these are table levitations. This is photography. This is direct voice. This is everything. And so these scientists, these men of science, produce such a body of evidence that they were not only convinced, but they wanted to study it in a very scientific way. And so when I was a teenager and you started to talk about, seances and ectoplasm, I said, oh, yeah, right. Oh, yeah, right.
That stuff sounds nuts.
How do you know it comes out of the nose? How do you know it is connected to the medium? Because in 1890, they put the medium on a chair and the chair on a scale, and they put a table on a different scale. And so when the table was levitated, the medium actually gained weight. So the men of, you remember your high school science, and you'd say, okay, if one goes up and the other goes down, there's this interconnection.
Yes, yes.
And then a light bulb went. I said, wow, they really did scientifically study this. So I guess ectoplasm is real, and it does come out of your nose. I mean, they didn't just make this up. They tested it.
And you want to explain a little bit about ectoplasm? Because there's on this show have only dabbled a teeny bit in talking about table tipping and automatic writing. And for some, like I remember the first time I heard about it, I'm like, there's no way, come on. And you see these pictures, these black and white pictures of people that have like it looks like cheesecloth or something coming out of their nose or their mouth. These are the men of science who studied this and have touched it and have felt it and have weighed it. And so ectoplasm is the material that is exuded from a physical medium. Physical mediums are very rare in the ability to do this. Yes.
And it does not have to happen all in dark. Some can happen in red light, and there have been documented cases and scientific testing that is done that is in full light condition. Wow. But whether it's a physical substance you can see and feel, or whether in daylight you can only see like a wisp or smoky form. It's exuded by the physical medium, and if it's in a seance condition, some of the sitters might also exude it. And Spirit World has also said that inanimate objects might be used as well. And there's a famous case in my book that the ectoplasm of a cat was used also in a Marjorie Crandon seance. So it's exuded by a physical medium, and the spirit world can use this substance to create phenomena, whether it be knocks or raps or full levitation or full-blown materialization. But that's what it is in a nutshell. And there's been some debate now, there's some phenomena that's not ectoplasmic based. Well, it's not as rigorously tested by scientists, this type of phenomena. But what we know most about is ectoplasmic based phenomena.
Well, even I talked to some of the tutors at the Arthur Findlay College who've been spiritualist ministers for 40 years, and what they've witnessed, even touching a person in one of these seances, and it could be a father that his exact voice comes out, or he can feel the stubble of his the hair on his cheeks, or a little child's hand will come through. And when it's interesting because my skeptical mind wants to say, this is all made up. And I'm sure there are a lot of cons and frauds out in the world. But the more I study, Maxine, I get that like this phenomena is real. It's rare, but it's wonderful. And it, might have taken place a lot more of it back in the days you talk about.
And I would say it's just as common now. But it just takes years to develop. Okay. And not everybody, if we still had home circles and met once a week, over the course of 5. Oh,
it's true. Well, and that's what people would do. They would sit with their trusted circle of close people, right? And they'd I don't even know what would happen in one of these, but they'd build up a power, and they'd meet every week at the same place, same time.
Correct.
And then to make contact and things like that. So it was something the spirit world was working with, and in our busy lives, I don't know how many people take the time to do that.
Well, when you've witnessed that kind of phenomena, and when you've witnessed the love from the spirit world, certainly you can dedicate and discipline yourself and say, if this is important enough to the world, then I'm going to make a sacrifice one day a week or something.
Oh,
so,
sure.
Yeah. So,
have you witnessed things yourself?
Have I witnessed things myself?
Cool things.
I have been in a number of seances, and there's and I have not witnessed the physical outside of a seance.
Right.
But then I was on a radio show, and the host was a well-known national show, and he said, well, maybe you witnessed it, but you didn't know it was real, or you didn't know it was phenomena. It was so real. And that made me think. So there might be instances in my life where I would see phenomena, but it would be so real and so commonplace. I might, that skeptic in me is now kind of awakening to see, what's the difference between phenomena and reality. So I'm looking at that question right now.
Yeah, well, even phenomena, I have a friend of mine who finds dimes all the time. That was his sign between maybe his grandmother, whoever it was. And I know there's something called apports, which are things that get materialized. And I don't doubt that some of these dimes that are showing up that weren't there 2 minutes ago, that this physical materialization and stuff happens outside of a seance,
Sure, it does.
Wow. Okay. What should I ask you next? I know our time is limited. You have the floor, sister.
I would like to impress on your readers to investigate what has happened in the past, because there have been some fabulous mediums of the past, and we today truly stand on their shoulders, and we should not let their memories die. And so the great mediums of the past, and even up until the 1950s, 1960s, even 70s, they were nothing like the celebrity TV mediums that you see now. And so I am passionate about educating the public about knowing what we do and trying to discern the frauds from the genuine spiritualist psychic mediums, and to develop a standard for the mediums, psychic mediums that they go to. And I am just wanting the people to not fall for anything. My own daughter knows, all my children know that I'm into this, and my own daughter called me up and she said, I went to a tarot reader, and I said, okay. And I said, what'd she say? And she said this and this and this. I said, okay. And I said, how much she charged you? I said, okay. And then I said, okay, well, what's your problem, dear daughter of mine? And she said, the tarot reader wants me to buy special candles because I have dark energy around me, and only these special candles can help. I mean, this is my own daughter who almost spent, $100 on candles. And I was furious, and I thought, I need to continually drum that beat about just having standards. And I'm not pointing fingers. I never say names, but a lot of these celebrity psychic mediums, I've met most of them, and all I'm telling people is to have some standards and to discern what they say and to look very carefully at what they say and ask yourself, are you happy? Would you pay $400, $500, $600 for that? So I'm on a crusade to have the listeners and the people have some standards and to discern, and certainly don't fall for, I got to buy $20 candles because I have bad energy. That I'm passionate about that, Sandra.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'll be your partner in that. I loved what they taught us at the Arthur Finley School about integrity. And there are times that you may not be connecting with spirit and be able to give a reading. And in the first 10 minutes, they say, if nothing's coming through, no exchange of money. Thank you very much. Another time or another medium or something. And to really give credible evidence. And like you say in the introduction that I did, you want to really pinpoint someone's deceased loved one and be accurate. I just got off the phone with my good friend Darla, and she had seen a medium that gave a stage show who was so generic. And if she got something wrong, she would, this must have been a past life, and I know from my own humanity that when we're grieving, it sure helps to believe in life after death, but there are people that prey upon these people, and when things are out of your budget and you do have to buy a special cream or potion or candle, I really I like your advice. You don't need all that. The spirit world's not
no
requiring that.
And there have been. You could develop any philosophy you want to. I don't name any names of celebrity psychic mediums or anybody to trash talk. I have a certain story or two, but you don't know who I'm talking about. But personally, I love to poo-poo, the people who talk about angels and fairies, and I'm saying to the people, look, you can believe in angels and fairies. Just because I poo-poo them, you can believe in them. But you have to understand, you are believing something on pure faith. Okay? Yeah, it's great to believe things on, I'm a former divinity school student. I could talk about religions that are based on pure faith. Mm-hmm. But don't tell me that Saint Michael Gabriel is behind me and has this message. Give me the proof that this is Saint Michael. Okay? Right. Oh, I can't do that. Okay, well then you're doing that on faith. And if that works for you, fine. But if that doesn't work for you, that's deconstructed a little bit, and look how other religions talk about angels and how the movement of angels has come in the last 20 years and added nothing philosophically to spiritualism or the movement. Mm-hmm. So go ahead and believe in angels, but at least know what you're believing is absolutely without substance.
Maxine, why don't you say what you really feel? Oh my goodness. See, I kind of do believe in angels. Here's the thing. I say this, and this is my own belief. For every human being that's ever lived on planet Earth, we all have a story of what life is like. We all have our own beliefs. I have studied with some of the greats, and some of the stuff that's come out of their mouth, I'm like, this is BS. Like, no way. So here's my advice just to anybody listening. If it empowers you to live a good life while you're here, take it.
Right.
And if it doesn't, throw it away. Nobody's got all the answers. I don't even think the spirit world has all the answers myself. But as far as this conversation is concerned, there is nothing like having a medium reading with an evidential medium that brings forth things that there's no way they could know. to realize that the heaven, the spirit world is real, that your loved ones are around, that we are a soul having a human experience. And, I think you're the same way, Maxine, is you're real passionate about education and learning and sharing, and then ultimately living a good life here on earth.
Yeah, the spiritualism is not being obsessed with life after death.
No.
Spiritualism gives us the strength to live before our death.
Yes.
And that there is life before death. And so when you truly know that you do not die, when you truly know that your spiritual essence goes on, well then, doesn't that empower you and embolden you to live life really fully?
Yeah. One of the tutors, I don't remember who it was that spoke at the Arthur Findlay College when I was there, said, our deceased loved ones are more alive than many of us living on earth right now. And I just thought, that's brilliant. We're like the walking dead.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Why don't I ask you, what do you think, I don't want to say the purpose of life is, but yeah, kind of.
Well, I want to have people also examine that philosophy that is always being put out there. Just because Wayne Dyer says something, just because someone else says something, look at it. Mm-hmm. Look at it. And does it make sense to you? And if it doesn't make sense to you, okay, put it off to the side. So, some of what I hear really upsets me, maybe because of my own personal triggers in my life.
Yeah.
But I do not like the term or the idea or the philosophy that life is a test. Okay, or that God is testing us, or we're here on the school to learn a purpose. Where the analogy that is used very simplistically is that Earth is a classroom. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I've been around enough classrooms to dredge up a lot of memories when you say the word classrooms, and so I don't want people to think that life is about passing or failing.
Yes.
So when you say so. Make sure that when you say, I believe that life is a classroom, do you really mean that you fail or pass? Or so I'm like the Socratic method. I'm like Socrates. I ask people what they really believe and have them unpack their belief system. And if they're okay with the earth as a classroom, fine. But more often than not, people get hung up in these values about, I've got to succeed in my life, and I'm pressured to pass,
right? Or
I'll fail, and who wants that pressure?
No.
So I don't think of life as a classroom so much as an experience. I have to experience what it's like to have an alcoholic father and to be severely limited in my childhood. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's not a punishment for anything I did in the past, but that's something I chose to go through and experience. Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's part of my life, is to experience things. And sometimes, and Sandra, we don't all sign up to come here to experience the good and the pretty. We got to experience, that limitation and the challenge, whether it be an alcoholic father, or whether it be some failures in life. We should embrace it as an experience.
I like that, because even failures, it's those people that fail enough time that become the most successful. And I know people that have committed suicide because they've failed, thinking that failure is a bad thing, whereas what if failure is a good thing, because eventually you'll succeed,
It's just experiencing.
Right.
It's just experience. My soul needs to, or my soul wants to experience this. And it isn't going to kill me because my soul can't die anyway. So there are certain things I wanted to experience in my life. And so I believe that we come here with a life plan, and we choose to have these experiences. And so I don't believe that just because. I believe that because Michael Newton and Brian Weiss, through hypnosis, created a large body of evidence saying, this life plan theory, has some legs.
Yeah.
And so we come here, and some of my best friends are in minority categories, and they think that life's not fair and that they're victimized and da-da-da. And I feel their pain. But in my philosophy, they chose to experience a life as a minority or with these limitations. And so I can't really blame my father. I can't really blame, the color of my skin, because I chose this, and I chose to have this experience.
Yeah, and Maxine, it's also a very empowering way to see life. I adopted a couple of weeks ago a new mantra. I am not a victim. I chose this experience for my soul to grow. And why that's important to me, and I'm not pushing that on anybody else, is there's some rough, tough times that I've had. And it's not saying that this is the truth, but it certainly gets me into the driver's seat of my life, has me start thinking, well, how am I growing from this? And when you start looking, even some really horrible experiences that I've had, I've now been able to make a difference for other people. So I buy into this life as an experience, and even in some of the most troublesome times, right in the moment of it happening, you might not understand it, but if you go 10 years in the future and look back, it's like, oh my gosh, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be here by now, or I wouldn't have learned this.
Right. And I don't like to boil things down into simplistic things too much, but that is just one thing. You asked me about the purpose of life, and that just keeps me going. And I know people debate reincarnation all the time. I happen to believe in reincarnation, but I don't dwell on it. Okay, so but I have gotten glimpses of, okay, why is this happening to me now? And is this a broader pattern in my soul? And because I don't want to know just to know that I was Cleopatra, but hey, why is this pattern always reoccurring in my life? Is there a broader thing that I should know about? And sure enough, that's when a broader soul picture will even put the perspectives of today into a greater framework and say, wow, I've been battling this for hundreds of years. No wonder it's kind of hard. I said, yep. But look at how you've come.
Right.
Look at how far you've come. And so the pain of that moment gets to be a drop in the bucket.
Yes. Maxine, I'm looking at the time. I know going into this that our time was limited, so I want to draw this interview to a close, but I find myself like I could go on forever talking to you. Could you discuss a little bit about your radio show? Because on We Don't Die Radio episode 106, I have a link to Maxine's radio show, because I know you do have a lot of episodes and you're passionate about sharing.
Well, I started back in April. Before April, I was a guest on maybe 20 other shows, and I wanted to get the feel of it. And I started to be a host in April, and I have over 50 shows archived. Many of them are on subjects of the phenomena and pioneers of spiritualism. I did one on apports and absentee healing. And I would have a half an hour of content in every show in which I would talk about these subjects based upon not what I know, but what I have discovered to be true from the scientific research. Mm-hmm. And then every show I have live call-in readings. So
that's fun.
Yeah, I like to interact with people, but because I want to educate them. And I say, don't feed the medium. Don't tell me stuff,
no.
And I explain why.
Right.
And so the listeners who follow me now know my pattern. And so, it's on Blog Talk Radio, mm-hmm. and I'm the modern day seer. That's seer with 2 E's. And that goes with my website, www.moderndayseer.com.
Maxine, thank you.
Thank you, Sandra.
This is our speed episode, but it's all good because it's left me wanting more. And I'm super interested in this physical mediumship stuff. In fact, I'm going to go to the UK in November and see a couple of the top physical mediums in the world do their thing and experience it firsthand. So we can talk about that another time. But I'm really interested. I gotta see it to believe it, kind of a thing. Anyways, I thank you for being our guest. For our listener, thank you for spending this time with us. Of course, all episodes are at WeDon'tDieRadio.com. And I want to also give you, if you go to WeDon'tDieRadio.com and click on its Insiders Club, you can receive a free copy of my book, We Don't Die, as well as a very healing audio called How to Survive Grief. If you know anyone who's grieving, it's a great thing. And again, remember to visit Maxine Meilleur's website, moderndayseer.com. So in closing, this is Sandra Champlain. I have been your host on We Don't Die Radio, and I believe that life is an education for the soul. Maybe not a classroom where we pass or fail, but like Maxine says, life is an experience. So I want to thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon.